All right, welcome back, welcome back. So we do have online Mr. Rondell Fields, who is the head of or the founder of the Single Fathers Association. I want to give you so many different titles, but anyhow, good morning and welcome, my brother.
Good morning, my brother.
Very good. All right, Friday was International or the Day of the Boy Child. And you know, raising boys, when they are absentee fathers, there are women who would say, I need help with my son. I remember that very clearly. I never forget it because I know men play a very significant part in their boys' lives, in their boy child or the children. Just tell us about how important that is.
I mean, it's typically important. You have to consider that the man or the father is the same sex as the boy. So even when it just comes to physical attributes, he has that he has that opportunity as father to be able to guide the younger male in his faith. So particularly you see the value and importance of the man being at the being in or being present in the home when there's a boy particularly present there. For a number of reasons. And I said it could just start from the physical attributes and the experiences you would have, not even looking into the emotional side, looking at the physical side, going through the adolescent stage, going through when he was a younger boy, premature stage, things that he could share, experiences that he could share with his physicality, with his son. He has that advantage that a mother doesn't have. If we go at the emotional side or the spiritual side, as a young man and a young boy, there would be particular experiences that he would have gone through that he can now impart into his son. So it's very important, as I said, being the same sex, being the same gender
Right.
as the boy. The father, particularly, would have some level of advantage, I perceive, when it comes to reaching out to the young male in the space, the young boy in the home.
Right. If I go back to your struggle, this association was started out of where mothers, in some cases, you would point to your scenario if you care to, where
Right.
some mothers would prevent by out of vengeance and
Right.
tell the father you will never see your son again out of spite. And in some cases, you have to take legal action to father your son, which you're willing to do. In some cases, again, if mother would take the father to court to have him locked away because he's in love with some other lady and he's willingly taking care of his son or children with her. Let's speak to that. The child that is prevented from his father because of some malice some woman have over the fallout in
Correct.
the relationship.
And, and you see, that's why sometimes I often laugh and maybe it's because I'm so exposed to that level of experiential knowledge that it sometimes, and I mean, not in a degrading way, it sometimes comes across funny to me sometimes when, people say fathers need to step up when they go on a podium or they go on a platform and say fathers need to do what they have to do. And I'm not saying that there aren't negligent fathers who have the opportunity and fail so to do. But I can tell you, there is a great number of men, and particularly I can guarantee you an increased percentage of men of this generation that want to be involved in their children's lives and are not allowed to, that they are not permitted to be involved. They have instances, even if they're not before the court, it's an acrimonious relationship. The woman and the man, as you rightly pointed out, are an issue, and they can't find that maturity to put their personal feelings aside for the benefit of the child. So the child no longer becomes a human being, the child now becomes property. This is my child. And I mean, this is some of the things that cause the the blockades and cause the blockage of the father's involvement, particularly in the young boy's life. All it isn't only negligence, and I think we only speak of negligence because it comes from the male counterpart. But there's also, as you rightly pointed out, malicious intent to refuse that communication between father and child as well. That also needs to be addressed.
I need to
So,
look.
I mean, Go ahead.
Sorry, continue. Sorry to cut you.
No, no, no. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Because I was going to ask about, well, I should ask about the coping mechanisms because there are situations where the young boy who's becoming a man is growing up and already dealing with the psychological effects of not having that father figure in the home, and they may be struggling and not even sure that they're struggling in terms of functioning in society if you look at masculinity and so on. What are some of the coping mechanisms for that individual who grew up now converting into a man without that father figure?
Well, boy, I would tell you, a young, immature male, unless he is guided or being mentored from a healthy place, external to the home, his coping mechanisms wouldn't be healthy coping mechanisms at all. It is the kind of coping mechanism that we actually see a lot of the young boys taking. Marijuana, as the past police lady just offered the inspector, looking for that mentorship. Sometimes if they're in a community and there's a community leader looking for that mentorship from the wrong person, trying to figure out in their very immature, untrained, and uneducated mind as into how to fill this gap. And therein lies the problem. Who we should point more to are the parents to understand that they should not allow their children, particularly in instances when it doesn't have to take place in their life, to be forced into finding coping mechanisms to deal with that feeling of abandonment. We need to talk to the parents further also, particularly in the instance when the mother and the father don't like each other. And in the instance if the mother doesn't allow the father permission to see the child, we need to speak to the parents to say, you may be making that child feel like they're being abandoned because they're not seeing the presence of the father. Or you yourself may be saying your father is no good, he don't come to see you. When you yourself know that you are the one putting the blockade there, we need to speak to the fathers also who have the opportunity, who the mothers are open armed, welcoming them to come to be a part of the child's life. And they refuse to for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons I see men refuse to go into young men's life or their children's life generally is when it's an affair or extramarital relationship. So they will mind the child financially, but they don't want to put their physical presence there to mentor the child, to show the child the type of guidance and male paternal guidance and love that any child would need.
But
So, really and truly, the coping mechanisms that the young people who going through the struggle, who, as I said, may not be exposed possibly to a church space where they have proper mentorship and other guidance, a cadet space, a police youth club space, where those persons take over the place of the parents and start to parent them. Those persons who don't have exposure to those spaces most times don't use the right coping mechanisms. So I'm glad you still brought up coping mechanisms, but I want to show the aspect of the coping mechanisms that young children attempt to utilize for their own self, for their untrained, inexperienced, and uneducated, immature mind.
the young man who is lashing out due to whatever frustrations that he is experiencing, it may be growing up in a home without a father, or it may be other factors as well. But the
Right.
lashing out becomes violent, so much that the parents or even peers, neighbors are giving up on this individual, forced to give up on this individual. How do we treat
Right.
with those situations in our society? Because it's real. The individual may become quote unquote a rebel now based on the unfortunate circumstances. How do we make that U-turn without giving up or growing numb to this individual who you would label as a miscreant, unfortunately?
And I would think about going before he even become a miscreant and having our society and our people understand how important and valuable mentorship of particularly young boys who live in single parent homes with their mothers. As one myself, I can tell you that at a particular age, when you become bigger and stronger than your mother, she is no longer your protector. You assume a role that you are too inexperienced for. You are too, physically, you're not strong enough to fulfill. You are not mentally strong or have the fortitude, the mental fortitude and competence to survive it, which is what you consider protecting the home. I have spoken to many young boys, and one particular young boy, his name is Diane, and his mother and his father had a very good co-parenting relationship. And for some reason, he always preferred to stay with his father. And I asked him, I said, why do you prefer to stay by your daddy over so much? And he said, Mr. Fields, it is because when I am with daddy, I feel like a child because I understand that when I am with mommy, if a rat run inside, I have to kill it. If a bandit run inside, I have to go. If it's to take out the garbage, I have to do those things. But when I am in daddy's space, I am not daddy's protector, as I am with mommy. I am dad's aid. So if daddy is in danger or a bandit breaks or in one of these home invasions, I go to help daddy than to defend him. And if you are a man, particularly in a climate like this right now, who has a household beneath him, with the concerns of home invasion and have children, you know as a man the things that run through your mind in a night. You want to lock every door, you want to close every window, you want to make sure you are secure, you want to make sure that is our nature, secure to protect. So imagine giving this role, given this responsibility, given this duty to a 13-year-old child who is just coming into adolescence is a mentally frustrating, debilitating, something that could really push a young man to become inherent of some of the same characteristics that you're saying.
All right.
He have to display a sense of machismo. He had to be angrier than the other boy who is his age. He had to have the right connections with the right fellas who bad in the area. So in case he need to protect his family, he could call on them. So you are putting him in a place to be angrier because he is now in a place where he is the protector, a role that he should not be fulfilling anytime soon. So I would encourage again, because of all what I just explained, that we see the value of mentorship of young boys who are in the same familial space with their mothers, with no male there to be that representation of protector and provider.
All right, so let's use that same adolescent stage of a young man. His voice started to crack, he started to feel like a man, and he is very rebellious because he is, well, and let's put him in a nuclear family where he has mommy and daddy. And he's starting to turn to manhood, or he's starting to experience, he feel like a man. You know, the parents say, you think you're his man. And there's always conflict with both father and son in the home, because there are stipulations that the father would keep him confined to and not give him the opportunity to be free as he believes, because his friend, he will make often comparison, look Peter and Paul doing it, so why I can't do it? And daddy, I really can't take you in. And start to rebel, and in some cases they fight, and then daddy would say, two-man rat can't live in one hole and you have to leave home. Prematurely, eh? In some cases. These are serious and real scenarios. When the boy becomes adolescent and believes that he's man now and confronts the father, in some cases he never heals. What are we to do in that in that situation? Where the father is guiding the child, right? However, peer pressure on the outside, the boy starts to rebel in the house. He can't live under my roof because no child is knocking me, as they would say in local parlance. How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, you have to have some type of external intervention, and you have to be able, yeah, you have to, You have to hope rather that there's somebody on the outside that the young man respects enough, looks up enough, looks up to enough, and sees as a mentor. Not because your child may be in your house means your child sees you as a mentor. And that's why fatherhood is so important, particularly to young boys, that the father himself understands that he becomes an exemplary model that his son wants to be the role model, wants to see as his role model. He may never always agree with him. I have it with my sons all the time as they get bigger. But at the end of the day, we are men, and you show them how men discuss things. They
But you see,
understand that they have an open space to speak.
not
They
stick up in.
understand that,
Stick
yeah,
up in right there. In some cases, that has never been established until it was
too
never
late.
established from young, or from, they say bend the tree while it's young, and not necessarily bending, but having a relationship, a very open communication, where they can
Yeah.
speak to everything from since the boy was a little toddler. However, in some cases we miss, and we stay away from that period of from teenager into adulthood, and we stay away, and that is where they accumulate from the outside that can affect the relationship on the inside. Continue from that standpoint.
Correct. And that's why I've started off by saying, I hope that there's somebody else or some other male on the exterior that the father can get to or the mother can get to. Is it somebody in the community? Is it his cricket or football coach? You'll be surprised that many young boys who they deem rebellious to their father and mother because their father and mother didn't guide them into that way to understand that, hey, we could communicate, set proper examples to them, that they saw leadership in their football coach or their basketball coach, and because the love of the sport was so dear to them, and they had to be disciplined under his rule to get to play, that he could reach them. And you as the parent now, first of all, have to acknowledge there's a reason why my son doesn't take my guidance. Is it to me or him or both of us? And if you can identify somebody else, one, the person is a positive person. I ain't talking about the gang leader, because some of them only respect the gang leader, and by then it's a bit too late. But if there is a positive influence, you can reach out to that person to make an intervention. I was a troublesome little youth, and it was my form teacher, who was a woman, who was able to reach me. Because to me at that point, he showed a certain level of care, a certain level of nurturing spirit that I embrace. And you as a parent have to be able to have an external party intervene at that point. And if you all realize that it's already too far at loggerheads and the man become a man and he want to leave, sometimes instead of bloodshed in the domestic space, it's sometimes better that you all leave and then try to put one party leaves, or the son leaves if he's at the age to leave, and then you all try to mend the relationship so there's no bloodshed in the home.
Is there such a
But as we
thing?
said, Brother B, these things can be prevented in the
Exactly.
manner and the way we parent and mentor, and not because I am the father, you are submissive to me at all the time. You understand? For somebody, I was having a discussion with my son yesterday. Submission is and suppression is two different things, you know. That submission had to come from them and had to come willingly because I want to be like my father. I wouldn't agree with him, but the things he represents, I am proud of him.
Going to do, I guess, counseling as a parent in the company of your child. So the counselor would speak to both the parent and the child, because there are situations where the child, again, may be lashing out, and the best advice, I treading lightly with best advice, but the best advice would be for both the parent or parents with that child to do a series of counseling and so on. Is that a recommended approach? And is there like a parenting in 2025 schooling or seminars that speak directly to managing the brought up see of a child in 2025? Because times are changing and continues to change.
Correct. And you see, the reason why you would have seen me say that I say it's good to get somebody on the outside who the child recognizes, acknowledge, respect, is because that's the person who you want to do that intervention most times. If you have no other choice and you want to use that state resource like National Family Service, and it may be a last resource, then you go ahead and do it. I'm not saying National Family Service is incompetent or anything of the sort. I'm not saying if you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist that it's not helpful as well. I'm not saying counselor from a certified counselor isn't helpful as well. I'm certain I've seen them be very helpful in many scenarios. But I suggest those things if you don't have what I suggested before. Because I see it, and it's here with children, you want children to respond to something that they listen to, something that they love, something that they could hear. And I just being real and layman as it is. You see, it's easy for me to say, go to victim and witness support unit, go to the National Family Services, they will provide counseling, go for Families in Action, they can provide counseling. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the person is just trained on theory and don't have experiential knowledge. When sometimes right in a community, it have granny and grandpa, or it have uncle, or it have the old Mr. George on the corner that may not have what we consider as the knowledge to counsel, but they have the experience what to do. So I would like them to take all approaches, both the layman, what I just considered or called the layman or community approach, and also if that fails, there's the more social service assistant approach via the state or via private services that you could access as well when it comes to counsel. But I don't want people to think counsel only comes from those places.
I
Counsel
remember.
come from church, come from a mandir, come from a pastor, come from a priest.
I remembered in 2018, it was one of the, I think it was the National Principal Association or so, was suggesting parenting classes in schools. Is that a
Right.
suggestion that you embrace?
Well, of course, and these things exist, Bruce. These things exist, but parents don't have time for it. You go and you ask the Ministry of Social Development if they do have some sessions on co-parenting classes. And then also, because the resources isn't really pushed into the National Family Service under the last dispensary, I'm not saying government, but the last way it was organized under the Ministry of Social Development, counsel and co-parenting classes and a lot of these things were not the primary focus of the Ministry of Social Development. It was given a grant. So because these things weren't created in a sustainable way, and because parents don't have the time, they don't think counsel is necessary as well, no matter where it comes from. They don't go to these classes. So these classes are recorded to have been had, and when you watch attendees, 2 people come, 3 people come. If they have it, it was online. It wasn't even face to face to build a true rapport with the parents as well. So yes, those things exist, but if you want to continue doing them, it must be meaningful, it must be heavily sensitized, and it must be done in a way that it is sustainable and it is encouraging and it gets the parents out as well. And
All right.
parents themselves have to be called out as well to make sure that they participate in programs of such a nature.
Excellent. All right, Mr. Rondell Fields, we'll have to bring you back to speak about the foreign cars and the Forex issue. We hadn't touched that yet because we just wanted to focus on the boy child and the role parents play in, particularly fathers. All right, so we want to thank you for being with us this morning.